Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And we are back here with Dr. Maureen O'Shaughnessy. Excited to have her back from the Seattle area, although she's working and helping people worldwide with her work from LEADPrep and let alone education evolution. Let's welcome back Dr. Maureen O'Shaughnessy for the day. How are you?
Hi, Jill. I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to be back here again. I know we had a great conversation last time, and I know it's going to be the same because really what you're doing is pretty amazing. And her work, her travels, her family, I commend you and how she's educating so many. So yeah, between families, looking for a different type of learning program, especially in the Seattle area, and folks who reach out to Education Evolution, you must hear themes and questions that us parents must always ask, right? How about we use today's show and take some time to maybe look at some of the questions and go over some of the answers that you can provide the parents with possible solutions. Would you mind sharing that with us?
Jill, that I would appreciate doing that. When I came back from overseas, I tried 6 or 7 different high school models for my daughters, and I'm in education. This is my jam. So, yes, I feel parents' pain when they know their kids have this capacity and ability, and the schools are taking the love of learning or the spark out, or the kids are having a miserable experience. So, I want parents to know there are tons of resources, and I'd love to unpack some of that with you today.
Absolutely. And before we continue, would you mind just sharing how we can reach out to you as well?
Absolutely. Maureen at educationevolution.org. And our microschool is lead-prep.org.
Perfect. And just before we continue, just a little bit of your background. I know I got to know you, but there's new listeners each and every time. So just if you can, in summary, tell me a little bit about the programs that you're running.
Absolutely. I am a career school leader. And for the last 10 years, I have been running a microschool that I founded that I'd wished had been available for my daughters when we came back from international schools. So Lead Prep is a microschool for 6th through 12th graders, really focused on their needs and meeting them where they are and giving them a voice. And then I also have a book on microschools, and Education Evolution is a place where I can support people. And there's a podcast that has a lot of great guest speakers and their innovations. So those are some of the pieces that we're doing just to kind of help kids find the right place to be learning.
Perfect. All right. Do you mind if we go to some of the questions that we
That's
have?
great. Yeah.
Here's one. My learner is ahead in some subjects, but behind in others. How can I find a school that can address this?
That can be so tricky because we're kind of this assembly line that was invented to train people to be working in the industrial era and in assembly lines. And so it's like, okay, 12-year-olds, you'll do this math, you'll do this writing. And we haven't evolved past that. And it never worked. And definitely now we have some kids that have self-taught, they're autodidacts, and they are way ahead in science or way ahead in math. And all of a sudden we're saying, no, you're this age, you have to go at this pace. So looking for schools that have advanced classes or modified classes is one way. And a lot of public schools can offer that. But there are also a lot of schools that let kids have much more of a say. And looking at the Montessoris, which go all the way up to 12th grade, looking at a lot of the micro schools have that ability to be nimble and adjust up and down. So looking for schools that aren't lockstep. And unfortunately, a lot of public schools, well, all public schools have to teach to state tests. So that kind of limits them. So sometimes it's looking at private schools.
Got it. All right. And private schools can be affordable. They can. Some people think, oh, they're not. But there's a lot of benefits. It depends if you're a military. I have a friend who does a private school, but she gets a discount with the military. So there are ways. And if you have a learning disorder, like my nephew who's highly autistic and anxiety, but there's some state programs that could also help children out there, which I'm sure you would recommend as well, right? That can really assist with that.
Absolutely. Yes, it's worth looking into it. And our micro school has a sliding scale so that we can accept students from all different socioeconomic backgrounds. So asking, not assuming, oh, I can't afford that,
Yes.
asking.
Always ask. All right, let's
Mhm.
go to this question. My student's having a hard time now returning to school after the COVID lockdown. And I remember that as well. The masks, the drills, the being away, the virtual learning. It was so hard for so many people. Do you have any suggestions maybe to help them re-engage?
Yes, I think that we will not understand for quite a while the trauma COVID had on all of us, and especially on our young, where it took a whole developmental chunk out of their lives. And now we're saying, well, go back and be at this developmental stage, even though you didn't get the socialization, the academics for that 2 or 3 year chunk. And of course, there's a lot of anxiety. And we need to find ways, instead of saying, you have to go back to this, we need to find ways to ease kids back in. And sometimes it's through extracurriculars, like, hey, why not this 4-H Lego club? Why not doing
Yeah.
some art? Why not get them back socializing, because they're behind on that, and let them ease back into socializing. Informal, there's things going on at the YMCA, or you can have socials going on.
Hmm.
And then look for schools that have a blend. There are a lot of parent co-ops that you can go to school twice a week and kind of be homeschooled the other 3 days. But to say we have to go back to 100% in present, in classes, 5 days a week isn't going to work for some kids. Also, again, micro schools are not the answer for everything, but when it's smaller, when you're not dealing with 1,000 kids and changing classes in crowded hallways and locker combinations, when it's smaller and you get to know the people better, it's easier to feel safer quicker, and it's easier for teachers to see if there are any challenges and to help mitigate those.
Beautifully said. All right. What about someone here who says, my kid was very bright in some areas and focused on very specific passions. Are there any programs where learning can happen through those passions instead of insisting that the students study the same material each and every day?
Absolutely. And again, if you can look at specialized programs, some middle schools and high schools have schools within schools, or choice schools, little magnet schools. So in the Lake Washington School District, there's a STEM high school, there's an environmental 6th through 12th grade. There are different options. So look and see what's out there, and don't be afraid to create something or to ask for something if it's not where you are. If you see it in Lake Washington, but you want it in Idaho, look at these models and take some initiative to help make that happen where you are. Also, again, personalized schools that allow students to have more voice. Montessori is a great one. A lot of micro schools, a public school system across the US is big picture learning, and the students have a big voice, and they have to show their competencies, but they do it through their own passion projects. And it actually ends up with them doing internships and trying on different things while they're still in school. So we have to become savvy about all of the resources, investigate them, or ask to have them created.
Got it. All right. Well, what about someone who is worried that their student and their child are just learning how to do school, basically, right? To try to get through in a sense. And, what about life after high school? Maybe they're not going to be ready. Any recommendations to someone and maybe the resources that you could help someone with?
Absolutely. And it's funny because when I started a school within a school in a large high school, it was project based. And so is my micro school now. And we would get students that would come in and it's like, so how many pages do I have to write? And it's like, well, how much do you need to express and communicate your understanding or to outline your plan? And kids are so used to, teacher, tell me how many pages, tell me when it's due, tell me what it needs to look like. I can crank this out for you. But
Hmm.
because it's not something that they feel like is relevant or has an audience or purpose, they're just going through motions. And I get, because when I had 150 students when I taught in high school, I get that teachers can't just be spontaneous and creative for each child. But that student is not graduating learning how to do anything but follow directions. And we know 21st century skills are creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, communication. That's not going to happen from following all of these tasks. So parents are right to be worried. Those aren't going to make a student prepared for anything but perhaps more schooling. And we all know of college kids who graduate, have huge debt, and they really don't have a career path. And so they're stuck in something that doesn't align with any joy to pay off their student loan debts. So we have to Really make sure we go the extra mile. And it could mean something like big picture learning, where you have a say in your learning and you're starting to learn, oh, I like this, I don't like that, I don't want to be in an office setting, I want to be here, I want to be there. Also, there's a program called PTech that's a public school program, and it is sponsored throughout the US. It's in other countries too. And it gives kids a partnership with a business. The business comes into the high school
Oh,
and helps make things relevant for them. And then the kids, even if they wouldn't normally qualify to do dual enrollment, high school, college, it helps get them qualified. So they graduate from high school, oftentimes with an AA. And these are some of the most disadvantaged students. So this is not an elite prep school program. It is for all students. So they end high school with a certificate and some skill set, so they're not flipping burgers as they continue on their college or career path. Another thing is to look at stackables. There are stackable credentials, and a lot of kids can be
I
earning
was
those in
going to
high
say,
school.
what are stackables? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
familiar with that
yeah,
term.
yeah. There are stackable credentials, and it's picking up speed.
Okay.
Where if a kid takes something and maybe it's in Google or Microsoft, if they take and get a skill, then they can go out and get a job with that. And then oftentimes their
Ah,
employers will pay for additional skills. So instead of 4 years of liberal arts, which is beautiful, but not necessarily preparing somebody for a career and an income, shorter chunks of time with specific skills is becoming a thing. And so parents need to get educated and really look at, is what my kid doing going to help them down the road? And if not, what could we do about that?
got it. All right, thank you. What about this one says oh, my child is not succeeding. Is this it? Yeah. My child is not succeeding in the local school but does not want to leave their friends. Oh, that's true. How do you help a child with a situation like that?
Oh, that is so heartbreaking because we all want our kids to be happy. And we know peers become much more important in middle and high school as kids start to push away from adults and individuate, become themselves. Um, it is still really important that the parents are willing to be the parents. They have the larger perspective. And I've had that happen in my micro school. My kid is getting C's and D's and he's on the football team and he loves it. But no, I want my kid to be ready. He wants to be a counselor. He wants to do this cool stuff. He's not even going to get into college at this rate. And sometimes it takes nudging your student to try some other models, to go and visit them. And I've had parents say, hey, you know what? I know this is unfamiliar. It's unfamiliar for me too. I'm used to the larger traditional school, but I'm going to have you try it for a semester. And hey, I'll help you get your driver's license early. I'll incentivize this, but you're going to try it for a semester. And then you get to compare and contrast and see, and you get to decide. So I'm not saying you're doing this forever, but sometimes parents need to step in because it's kind of tragic when parents are like, oh, my kid's happy here and all of his friends are passing and he's not, but he doesn't want to leave his friends. And in 2 years' time, when all those friends graduate and this student doesn't, that happiness is gone and the student is really in big trouble. So, parents, it's painful, but you have to explore the options, nudge your kids to check them out, and then sometimes even insist that they try something short term because we're the ones that can see where they need to be down the road. And it's more than just having friends.
Yes, for sure. All right. At this time, would you mind reminding us how we can reach out to you? Website, phone number, social media pages, if someone does want to reach out for a consultation.
Absolutely. Educationevolution.org is a great place to find me. And a lot of podcasts are on the
And
topics
you
that
have
I'm
a
talking
podcast,
about.
don't you?
Exactly, on education evolution. Yes, that's how I found you guys. It's
Tell us, tell
awesome.
us. Yes, yes.
Yes. So, big picture learning, P Tech, a lot of the things I'm talking about are full podcast episodes. And that's how I keep learning about more options is these amazing people come on my podcast and keep broadening my world. And then I consult for families in our area and help them know about our school and other schools that might serve their kid. And I do it on a larger scale just to help parents understand what they can be looking for and asking for. So educationevolution.org, Dr. Maureen O'Shaughnessy's LinkedIn page, lead-prep.org. Those are good places.
Perfect. All right. What about the world is changing quickly? We all know that. We want to make sure that our students are prepared to deal with these changes. But to prepare this uncharted future, what do students need to be learning in a sense? And how does this best happen?
That is such an important awareness for us to have. This is not our generation where we can get a job and get an education and stay in that job for our whole career. It's changing so fast, and IA is taking on so much that we really do need those 21st century skills. IA is not going to be able to communicate, collaborate, create, do that critical thinking the same way as humans. So we need our kids to have those basic skills.
Mhm.
And that means in a school, we need to see things like design thinking, where kids come up with a hypothesis and they do their research and they try it out and it falls flat on its face, and then they do another iteration. They have to figure out what didn't work. They have to work together on teams. So project-based learning, design thinking, we really need kids to have the chance to think, explore, mess up. And that doesn't always look tidy when you see a class full of kids doing their own thing and exploring, and it's more work for the teachers. But if you see kids sitting in rows at their desks, chances are they're not getting skills that IA can't do. And IA is not the enemy. We used to think calculators were the enemy. Oh my gosh, don't let my kid use a calculator. He has to know that math. And it's
Mhm.
like, or not. Calculators are a tool. IA is a tool. So how can we use that and go even further? So our parents have to help make sure kids are getting critical thinking and creativity experiences.
Got it. What about for the kids that go to school and feel lonely, don't have a lot of friends, in a sense, and maybe it's making them feel upset at home, depressed, reluctant to even go to school? Any solutions for someone like that that may have issues with social learning or feel they're not belonging to a group or to, to their school?
Yeah,
That's
there
heartbreaking. I know.
it is. And my older daughter with her autism, sometimes the social pieces were more of a challenge. And so when she was younger, because she loved her own world, she'd go off and do her own thing. And I wanted her to have a bigger world. Um, it's okay for us as parents to find ways to pull in other people into our social events or to put our kids in social events. I ended up overseas lugging a trampoline internationally, and it's a kid magnet, and you don't have to have good social skills to
Wait.
jump.
But for those that may not know, you've lived abroad so many different
Yes,
places, but you
yes,
brought a trampoline on the travels as well?
exactly, yes.
Ah,
And it's so, I mean, there we were in Ecuador, and the kids would just be out there jumping on the trampoline, and you don't need a ton of social skills and a ton of that, especially in South America, the young girls were super advanced, and they were tiny and Latina and advanced, and my tall, blonde, kind of really young and naive kiddo, there was a big disparity, and we can level the playing field by creating some activities or mixing some other kids in, creating those play dates and social activities when they're younger, and then more subtly creating those opportunities as they get older. We can also look at one-on-one schools if kids are really not having success, and then maybe micro schools and slowly building. And we have to find their passions because they're much more willing to risk if they know it gets to be an art program and they love to draw or paint. So we have to help them have that social experience. And if we're depressed, we definitely don't want to do more physics or something that is really tough for us. We want to get into the
yeah.
creative writing and the things. So, passions and purpose, a reason for stuff, and volunteering is always good. That phrase of helping the needy feel needed. I did that with my at risk school within a school, and the students did a lot of community service learning. And it was amazing. If
Yeah.
they didn't want to work with AIDS families, they babysat the kids so the AIDS families could go off and present and share information. This was in the 90s, and it was super powerful. So we can do a lot of things to help our kids have passion, purpose, and become included. And we have to, because it's depression and anxiety are a true thing right now, and we have to counterbalance that.
All right. Thank you. I hear some families get public school funding to pay for a program that works better for the learner. Is that true? Could you tell us more about that?
That's a big one. It's called non-public agencies, NPA. And if a student is in a special ed program and has that IEP, that individualized education plan, and their needs are not being met, they can ask to have the funding go so that they can be in a different setting. And sometimes that's a residential setting or a hospitalized setting. And
Okay.
our micro schools and NPA, there's a whole list in each state, and there's a national list. And sometimes school districts don't want to have that NPA status for a student because it costs them more money to outsource. And oftentimes, if there is a lawyer supporting you, especially in the Seattle area, Cedar Law specializes in that. A lawyer can help make that happen and help the school district that's dealing with so many kids see the specific needs of your child and that they're not being met. So families need to know NPAs, non-public agencies, are out there and school districts can fund them.
Ooh, I didn't know that. You taught me something new. Interesting. And you mentioned the individualized education plan. Yeah, my nephew has that, and he was actually transferred. He's in the public school system, but to one of the other high schools because it had more vocational skills. Because he'll never be able to get his well a real diploma in a sense. He's not going to have the math, the science, the that type of background. So we realized this. She tried. It didn't work out for him. So now he's doing the more vocationals to learn the hands-on tools that he needs to succeed. Because once he gets out of high school, yeah, he's not going to have that diploma, but he's going to have the vocational trainings, and that's the type of work he'll be able to do. Again, everyone's needs are different, but I know he had
Yes.
the IEP, and she called some agency, and they were helping her, and they transferred
Yes.
him. But
Two more pieces along that, Jill. Thank you for saying that because that kind of triggered. Our students have a right to be educated, a federal right to be educated through age 21. And so, if they are somebody that's not going to graduate from high school at 18 with all their credits met, they get to keep going and have resources, whether it's a sheltered workshop to gain skills, or whether it's a kid just having more time, online classes and whatnot to finish high school. And a lot of the community colleges have programs to help kids that are credit deficient. We even have an amazing one that is a vocational community college with all kinds of things, down to being a mortician. You can get trained for all
wow,
of these crazy things. And kids that are behind on credits, they can go and earn an AA if they start before they're 21, and they only have to take one high school English and one high school math. So if they've missed 3 years of social studies, 4 years of science, the state forgives all that and says this 2-year degree and one math and one English, and we're going to launch you because we don't want you bogged down with high school credits and requirements. We want you prepared to do something in the future. So check out the local community colleges and colleges. There are often a lot of amazing resources, and we don't know if we don't ask.
very true. Absolutely. All right. What else did you want to share with us for today?
Just that as parents, we know our kids better than anybody else, and we have to be the fierce advocate. And once we are, hopefully, we'll become a team with the school leaders and the teachers, Team Riley or Team Sarah working together. But if we don't advocate, it's very possible that our kids will fall through the cracks because everybody is struggling right now just to make education work. So, parents, you've got to get out there and ask the questions. I'm available to give you resources. Lots of people are available to give you resources, but you have to ask and be that advocate because there is no fairy godmother that's going to make sure our kids get the right schooling, and we can do that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And tell us about your podcast. When can we listen, tune in? Give us the details on
Uh,
that.
and a new episode drops every Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to educationevolution.org, you can find it, or Spotify. All of the major podcast networks have it. And it's super fun to hear all of the different things that are going on out there. And they may help you know of more resources to apply for your children.
Perfect. And also, let me ask you, you were a teacher, right? And for those that may not know your
Mhm.
background, you became it was elementary sixth grade teacher, right?
Uh-huh.
And then what made you leave that public school system in a sense and start your own business to do this private schooling?
Yeah, well, in when I taught in Spain my 5th year of teaching. And then when I came back to my district, they only had high school. I switched to high school,
Okay.
taught Spanish, English, saw the need, got to create a school within a school to meet the need. And I realized if it hadn't been for Sue Lombard, this amazing assistant principal, I would have never been empowered to make this difference. So I saw that administration meant a lot more power to make cool things happen for kids. So I shifted to that. And then I had to go back overseas and raise my girls in 5 different countries because I love international and cultural awareness. And then when I came back to the States, I'm like, hey, I need to help create something different, something that I wish my daughters had had. So that's kind of been my journey.
Great. And what book did you write?
Ah, it is creating micro schools for colorful mismatched kids. And this was a labor of love. One of our school parents designed the cover. Another parent who was on our board contributed editing. So it was definitely, it's got beignets from all of our experiences and stuff
I was
too.
going to say, tell me what is it about?
It's 7 steps that you can take to start a micro school and things you need to consider, whether it's a school within a school or whatnot. It also talks about our rainbow of learners, all of the cool programs that are out there. And then it shows us how we did our 7 steps with just a ton of examples so that it's not so daunting to break away and try to do something different.
Aw, and how can we get a copy of that? Where do we go?
It's on Amazon. That's probably the easiest place.
Of course. Oh my goodness. Oh wow, wow, wow. All right. So we got 2 minutes left. And in closing today, Dr. Maureen O'Shaughnessy, how did you want to leave off about lead prep, education evolution, and obviously why people should start reaching out and really thinking about their children's future? And by the way, it's grade 6 through 12 in the
Uh-huh.
Seattle area. Okay.
Yes. Well, our tagline, I think, should be every parent's goal. We should make sure that every child is seen, heard, valued, and thriving. That's Lead Prep's tagline, but parents, that could be your checklist. And if not, you need to be doing something to advocate for your child.
Beautiful. Thank you again. And to find you, where can we reach out to you?
Maureen at educationevolution.org, and the school is lead-prep.org.
Perfect. And go to Amazon, get her book. Just search her name, right? Dr. Maureen O'Shaughnessy, Shaughnessyy. Thank
Good
you so
job.
much. Pleasure having you here again.
Thank you,
And
Jill.
looking forward to the next time we connect. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.